Welcome to Ramgarh Shekhawati, the wonderland of heritage. Do you know that this region in 1900 was the land with the richest per capita income in the world? The people here had the highest per capita income in the world. What was so great about Ramgarh Shekhawati? How did this land become so wealthy, so prosperous, so beautiful? You know, it was called Doosra Kashi. Kashi is also another name for Varanasi. So this was called Doosra Kashi, meaning that this was one of the greatest learning centers of the world. A place which had 8 centers of Sanskrit learning, patronage of the arts, patronage of Vedic knowledge, patronage of Ayurveda. Do you know that Ramgarh Shekhawati is the only place in India which has a Veda temple, a temple with no deities, a temple dedicated only to the wisdom of this great land of India? All these wonders have remained hidden for a century. Many people in Ramgarh Shekhawati themselves don't know the treasures that they have. All the families, all the great Seths, the great families, the Poddars who created Ramgarh Shekhawati, the Ruyas who made it prosper along with the Poddars and the Khemkas and the Khetans, most of them have never returned to this land in a century. When I discovered this 9 years ago, I was absolutely stunned by the beauty of this place. I was also heartbroken at the destruction and the decay that had happened in this great land of heritage. So I took it upon myself to make the world aware once again of this wonderland of heritage, Ramgarh. Ramgarh Sethan, it was called. Do you know why? It was called Ramgarh Sethan because it was ruled by the Seths, not by the king, as was common in those days for all the other towns and cities of Rajasthan. How did this happen? How did this little town in the middle of this great Rajputana, which is now called Rajasthan, become a land which was governed not by the king? And there's a story behind it. The story is that at that time, in the late 1700s, the richest Seths, the Poddars, were living in Churu. They were in Churu kingdom. And they were very, very angry and upset with the king of Churu because huge taxes were levied on the Seths. So there was a fight going on between the king of Churu and the Poddars, who were the wealthiest Seths of Churu. Meanwhile, the king of Sikar was not wealthy. It was a poor kingdom, Sikar. The queen of Sikar was the sister of the king of Churu. So the story goes that the queen of Sikar once went across to Churu to spend time with her family. And one day when she was sitting with her brother's wife, which was the queen of Churu, the queen of Churu scoffed at her and said, "What is your Sikar in front of my Churu, a rich kingdom?" The queen of Sikar was insulted. She went back home to Sikar, to her own palace, and went quietly into her room and refused to take a drop of water or a morsel of food. When her husband, the king of Sikar, heard of this, he went to her and said, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "Until you promise me that you will create the most beautiful city in the world, I will not touch a morsel of food or water." The king didn't know what to do, and then he thought of a strategy. He sent his soldiers in the dead of the night to Churu to steal the Bahi Khatas, the account books of the richest Seths, the Poddars. The soldiers came back with the Bahi Khatas of the Poddars, and the next morning the Poddars came running to the king of Sikar and asked him why he had taken their account books. The king shared his grief and his plight with the Poddars and said, "Only you can help me. You can help me resolve this situation with my wife. If you, along with 7 families, move across to Sikar Kingdom, I will give you this entire land called Nasa Ki Dhani. Please convert this land into the most beautiful town ever witnessed by anyone in the world." Udar saw this as an opportunity and said, "We could consider this on 3 conditions. The first condition would be that we will pay no tax, complete tax holiday." The king agreed. Second condition is that we will never sit below you, we will sit equal to you. The king agreed. But one more condition, and the most important one: you will not rule this land. We will rule it. It will be our own law and order, our police, our administration. If you agree to all that, then we will move across and build the most beautiful city in the world. So the king agreed to all 3 conditions, and so the Poddars crossed over from Churu Kingdom to Sikar Kingdom along with 7 families and created an unforgettable land, Ramgarh Sethan. A land where every single haveli was full of beautiful frescoes in its ceilings, on its walls, where a true Seth had to do 7 things for society. He had to have a haveli, he must build a temple, he must create a chhatri for shade for travelers, he must create a kuan, a well for drawing water, he must have a goshala for cows, he should have a water body, a johar which could collect rainwater, and he should have a school or a vidyalaya. So if he did 7 things for society, if he made the 7th thing mark in Ramgarh, then he was called a Seth. So we had the Khemka Seths, the Poddar Seths, the Ruya Seths, and together all these Seths and many more. We had the Khetans, we had the Goenkas, we had many families who came together in Ramgarh and created the most intense cluster of heritage that you can ever witness in the world. In a span of about 3 kilometers, one can go back from Ramgarh with at least 2,000 photographs. Each haveli, each chhatri is worth many coffee table books. That's the kind of heritage we have at Ramgarh Shekhawati. When we go out on the heritage tour or the heritage walk, we will witness various sites of wonder. When we go to Mohar, which is an acronym for Museum of Heritage and Art at Ramgarh, you will witness a profusion of the traditional style as well as the company style frescoes on the walls with so many stories and so many beautiful nuances, so many visions or so many frescoes which show the fusion, the influences, the Indian influence, the European influence, and the artist's imagination in creating that fusion of costumes, of hairstyles, of vehicles, of backgrounds. It's just astonishing and absolutely beautiful. So come to Mohar, but besides the frescoes, also discover the secret room. You have to find it. We will also go to the Ramayan Chhatri, the most spectacular Chhatri of Ramgarh Shekhawati, where you have 9 layers of frescoes in the dome. Also, don't miss outside the dome, across through the garden, you see a wall with a lot of portraits. Don't miss the 4th Chinese on the wall of Ramayana Chhatri. Actually, the original name is Ram Gopal Poddar Chhatri, but it's popularly called the Ramayana Chhatri. Before that, we might go to the whole Poddar cluster of Chhatris, a cluster of 6 Chhatris, where you will see history moving. So right in front, when you enter, you will see a simple dome, the oldest Chhatri, with geometrical patterns. That was made around the 1830s. Then if you move your eyes towards the right, you will see a large structure which has 2 Chhatris in it. When you climb up, you will see 2 Chhatris. Now this, when you notice these, you will also see that the number of colors on these Chhatris, the painted frescoes, are only 4 colors, which is the mitti color, maroon, the mud, the turmeric color, yellow, mehendi, henna, green, and soot, which is black. So only these 4 colors were used up until 1900. This double Chhatri was made in the 1850s, precisely 1853, which you will see inscribed when you go up to the Chhatri. You will see it inscribed on the Chhatri. You will see Samvat inscribed. Samvat 1910. Samvat is 57 years ahead of the way we look at our calendar today. So when you read Samvat 1910, it actually means 1853. So these Chhatris that were built in 1853 had only the 4 natural colors, which were painted with the Ala Gila style of painting. Ala Gila style is painting on a lime plaster while the lime plaster is still wet, so that the colors get infused and go deep and are much more long lasting. Another thing when you go to these Chhatris is you see so much iconography, so many stories from Indian culture, from Indian history. A kind of amalgamation of the Indian influence, of the religious influence, of the British influence, of the Portuguese influence. So many floral designs. It's a designer's delight. It's a historian's delight. It's an artist's delight. And it's an enthusiast's delight. So as you wander through the Chhatris, when you look on the left, towards the left Chhatri, you will see on top the blues. The blues came in around 1900. So the Chhatris that were built later had the blue and the aquamarine colors. So this is the cluster of Chhatris, the Ramayana Chhatri. Then you mustn't miss the Shani Mandir, made by the Khemkas, a fabulous little temple with the most exquisite mirror work on its walls, on its pillars, made by Belgian mirrors. Also the rarest of rare frescoes on its walls. Don't miss the fresco of Vidhata in one little corner. Ask for it. Don't miss the Ganga temple. It's a rare temple, a temple dedicated to Ganga. And inside the temple complex, on the right, don't miss the Shekhawati Shiva with the mustache. Stay another day and do visit the beautiful forest Johar. We also have our bird experts there. Try to look at the many species of birds we have in Ramgarh Shekhawati. Also, when you travel through the forest, which is just 5 minutes from Vedaranya Haveli where you will be staying, notice the Chinkara deer on both sides of the road. Ramgarh Shekhawati has the 2nd highest population of Chinkara deer in the country. So Ramgarh Shekhawati is not just a town with great built heritage, not just a town with great natural heritage. It is also a town with great intangible heritage. Great knowledge of Vastu, great knowledge of Ayurveda, great knowledge of history, great knowledge of culture, great knowledge of herbs, of food. Something which is naturally inbuilt into the minds and systems of the people, so much so that they don't even value what they have. much more to discover in Ramgarh Shekhawati. When you come to us, when you visit us, when you stay with us in our Havelis, when you be with us for the Vedaranya experience, your mind, your heart and your senses will be healed, will be fulfilled. You will feel that you have finally found a home, a wonderland away from home.